Heidi-ho and welcome back. There's a political wild card we all need to be aware of and maybe a little bit concerned about. The Israeli government has certainly demonstrated recently that they will follow their own agenda regardless the impact on any other country. And it's no secret that the Israelis intend not to allow the Iranian government to obtain nuclear capabilities. They'll bomb those nuclear facilities that the Iranians are building at the drop of a hat. How far such a military conflict could escalate is a subject for another video. But this is the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians have promised on several occasions to close it if they're attacked. The U.S. military believes they're quite capable. It's about 60 miles wide, so they can't really close off the whole thing. But all they really have to do is sink a couple of tankers. The maritime insurance companies would freak. Now, I don't know about you, but if I owned a multi-million-dollar supertanker, I'd be pretty reluctant to sail it through an area where my insurance company denies coverage. At least 25% of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. The black ceiling is a theory concocted by my own deluded mind. If I can explain it well enough, you'll begin to understand that if it's right, our future will have serious energy complications, even if nothing ever changes with regard to oil. We have to keep in mind a couple of, we'll call them economic rules in order to understand this theory. I'm going to soon do a separate video on this first one because I think it's very important. The definition of a recession, at least in the U.S., is 2/4 of negative GDP growth. That's how we measure the health of the economy. The inverse is also true. In order for the economy to be healthy, it has to grow. If you'll remember back in our section on embedded energy, we briefly touched on the idea that everything in our daily lives depends on oil in ways we don't even know. As a result, our economy depends on cheap oil in order to function. Knowing these first two quote-unquote rules, we can begin to understand that in order for our economy to grow, so must our use of oil. The U.S. Department of Energy, through a spokesman by the name of Glenn Sweetnam, recently made a statement that they feel worldwide oil production will soon go into what they call an undulating plateau. I don't know what planet this Sweetnam fellow's been living on, but the truth is, if you ask most oil experts, they'll tell you that oil went into a plateau in 2005. It climbed until then, and then leveled off. Interestingly, though, the economy, and this is just a representation, kept growing until 2008, based on credit. We know now that that was unsustainable. Remember, in the summer of 2008 was when that high oil price was reached, and millions of people had to begin making the decision whether to fill their gas tanks and go to work or skip a mortgage payment. The economy went in the tank. Not to worry, though. Our political leaders and central banks, through the printing of money, quantitative easing, and the bailing out of the too big to fails, have saved the day. The economy's on the recovery, and green shoots are growing. Wait a minute. If oil production has to increase for the economy to grow, and oil production is stuck in an undulating plateau, then that means it doesn't matter what the leaders do. They could be doing everything right, and there could be such a thing as a jobless recovery. We know the economy can't be grown again by credit, and if oil production can't increase above this undulating plateau, then the plateau itself becomes, you guessed it, a black oil ceiling above the economy. The economy is destined forever to remain in recession or depression. Of course, this all is just the musings of the mind of a fat old guy in coveralls. Oh, I almost forgot. Let's assume that my black ceiling theory is correct, and oil production remains in this plateau for some time. And then maybe peak world oil production is true, and oil production begins to taper. That means the economy would never recover fully, never again to that 2008 point for sure. And that means that that point, that moment in 2008 when the economy peaked, is a very historic moment. Thousands of years mankind has grown technologically and otherwise until that point. But never again would commerce, convenience, and goods and services be available to us at the levels they were that summer. That makes that moment in time possibly the most historic moment in all of mankind, the peak of modern industrial civilization. It's mind-boggling to consider. If any of the issues we've discussed so far cause a shortage of oil or an increase in price, you can expect our political leaders to squirm like a fishing worm on the hook. It won't be just an economic issue, but it'll be declared a national emergency. We can expect to see things like price controls and rationing coming to a city near you. You should be aware that things like whatever military conflict they deem necessary, and people like the Secretary of Education will have plenty of gas and oil. But don't expect there to be enough for the little guy to get to work. Again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment, all that stuff. If you'll follow me to the next episode of this series, we'll explore the possibility that the Earth is creating all the oil we'll ever need all the time. See you there.